You'll only have an inheritance for your grandchildren if you do some good stuff with the kid in the middle. In fact, let's think about what you're leaving. You're leaving all of these things, your traditions, what's important to you as a family, the skills you've taught, the values that they have caught, which is a very important concept, and of course money and possessions. And so I want to ask you, what kind of future do you want for your adult? Because I'll tell you something, you can't control how your kids are going to turn out. Who's figuring that out? But I'll tell you what, you have a powerful lot of influence. And the way you vision how you want, what you want for your family, very much influences the way you parent. In my thinking, I think three ways like this. Firstly, we've got to love our kids. Secondly, we've got to lead them. And lastly, we can let them go. If we love them properly, if we lead them properly, we can let them go. So as a description, love is all about seeking the best for the other person. And as the parent, as you look at your young people, you constantly need to be reminded, as I am reminded, what is the right thing for my youngster today? If you will keep that in mind, you'll make good decisions. So love seeks, protects, trusts and perseveres with the truth. It does not cover up the lie. Now, having said that, we love them as they are while we look forward to what they can be. So 3 things about loving. Our words have power. So don't speak what you've got. Don't keep reinforcing the negative or the problem. State the problem and then speak the solution. The second thing is to open the front door to the dream. Our job as parents is to speak the future to them. Now, right now, when we look at the world and the chaos that it's in, it might be hard for some of us to think that there is a future for our kids. But I'm telling you there is. I tell you that's our role. We do not have the luxury of wallowing in negativity or self-pity or what's gone wrong in your life. If you've had a broken relationship or a broken marriage, it must be so difficult for you. If you're being shafted at work, not appreciated, if you're worried sick financially, I know that there are a number of things that could be happening in your life and in your family right now. But for the sake of your kids, you have to believe that there is a future for them. Would you agree with me on that? And last of all, roots to ground us means that our home needs to be a sanctuary. Our home needs to be a place where rituals happen, where traditions happen, where special meals happen, where our values and our culture and our heritage are celebrated. Let's talk about the second part, which is to lead. Can I tell you, I meet a lot of parents who almost feel apologetic that they're the parent because they don't feel that they're doing a very good job. That's all right. Nobody thinks they're doing a good job. I didn't think I was doing a good job. Does anybody else do not think they're doing a very good job? Hopeless. Only me. Okay. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Empowering your young adult to the real world. Can I say, from the day that your baby was conceived, you were given the responsibility and the authority to be the leader. Now, let me say, you cannot lead or influence anybody if you need their approval or their affection. And some parents are hostages to their kids. So I want to encourage you to take back that position of leadership and influence with your kids. So let's look at the parenting styles that don't work. Well, there's the indulgent parent, and that's the parent that gives everything. They're a servant and a banker. Unfortunately, what they produce is high-maintenance kids that are useless flatmates, not very successful employees, not very nice friends, and very disappointing life partners. So if you want to be attached to your kid for the rest of your life because they're so useless they can't do anything unless you're feeding them with money or whatever you do, well, just keep it up. That's the indulgent parent. The next one is the compensating parent, and I'm going to read you a little story. These are all in the book. This is from a person I know who had their young person on Miomo. This is compensating parent. Something's gone wrong, either in their life or their kid's life, and they feel so guilty about it, they've got to make up. I have 2 amazing boys, and they are my world. I made a promise to my eldest when he was born. I will never allow my children to face the challenges and hardships I faced. I will ensure that they live a carefree life Filled with joy, laughter, abundance and fun, they will feel safe and loved and nurtured. They will want for nothing, and they will never know physical or mental cruelty. Alice in Wonderland. All right. A noble promise, but one I now realise I cannot and I should not keep. I have succeeded in ensuring that my boys have lived a sheltered life. They have never had to deal with real hardships. They have been indulged, have never had to shoulder responsibility, do chores or want for anything. But in keeping this promise, I have deprived them of all that was good in my childhood, because she had a shocking childhood. I have failed to teach them the life skills they need to transition from child to adult. At 17, my son is a good boy, but he can't cook, clean a home, budget or plan. He can't take responsibility for his future. I haven't prepared him for the real world. He's been living in a bubble where life is always fair, good and kind. He hasn't faced hardships or learnt the difficult lessons, and he hasn't yet had the opportunity to triumph over those adversities that mature us into successful adults and good parents. I've reached a turning point in my life. I realise that I need to make a new promise to myself and to my sons. I promise to expose you to the challenges of real life, to educate and equip you with the skills you are going to need to grow and transition into amazing men, fathers, husbands, and leaders of your generation. I am sure I will continue to indulge you with love, but you will have to put in more sweat and tears to earn those allowances. I will hold you accountable for your decisions and your behaviour, and together we will work together as a family to overcome the challenges we face. Isn't that amazing? And I did a lot of work with that family. And that young man went on to go flatting eventually, and he's doing really, really well. So that's the compensating parent. You see, if you break your arm, you put it in a sling. But if you keep it in a sling long after it should have come out, what have you got? You've got atrophied muscles, and you've got an arm that doesn't work. So when we compensate for our kids, we make them weak. And you know what happens? They eventually grow to resent you. You're the reason that they can't make it in the real world. You're the reason that they can't. This is what they'll tell you. Because inadvertently, in trying to protect them, you've made them weak. And the last one is the divided. And this I come across probably more than anything, along with the indulged. And the divided parenting is where mum and dad don't take the time to get on the same page. Now, it doesn't matter if you're divorced, separated, or living together. I find this problem is consistent right across the board. In fact, some parents that are divorced are fantastic. They put their kids first and they take time to sit down and agree on the parenting style. But it's very confusing for young people to have divided parenting. And of course, they'll always go for the easy option, which isn't the right thing for them at all. What's right is to have consistent parenting across the board. But parents who are lacking security and they're insecure themselves and want to be the favourite, they'll always let the team down because they won't step up and support the other parent. I say to parents all the time, when was the last time you went out for coffee just to discuss your parenting? Just to talk about how you're going to raise these kids? And my dream for your young people is that they will be competitive with good character. Because if you can get those two working together, you'll have amazing young people. So we're moving from nurturing to empowering. We're moving from control to influence. You're equipping your young adult for where they're going and not for where they are. This is another little filter you can run through your brain. As you're doing things, you're saying, is that going to happen in the flat? No. Well, then why am I doing it for you now? Is that going to happen when you go to Otago to do your degree? No. So why am I doing it for you now? So it's a very good picture in your head. Remember that you're facilitating change, you're facilitating progress, and nobody wants to change. But if it's packaged in a way that's visionary, that's doable, and that there's no other option, change happens, growth happens, maturity happens naturally. So how do you measure your young adult's maturity? We have what we call a Declaration of Independence. And this is an assessment that you can do. You can download this from the website. So go ahead, it's free, just download this. I've got a lot of stuff you can download. This assesses how well your young adult now is doing financially, physically and emotionally. So financially being the ultimate to getting to adulthood is that you can pay your way, pay your bills. So you can take care of all your costs. Secondly, physically is that you can run a home. And thirdly, that you can take care of yourself emotionally. Then I developed, and there's also a worksheet you can download too, and you can get their attitudes and how they feel about these things. The living optimally contract is a contract between you and your kids. Now, why a contract? Because you need to train your young people to read contracts, to sign contracts. They're going to be signing the agreement on the flat. They may be getting a loan to buy a vehicle, or they will be getting maybe a student loan, which is a contract with the government. So start early where they understand how to read a contract, how to sign a contract, and how to honour a contract. So the idea of this is to clearly outline and agree on what is going to happen in the house. And this is where we're going to start to shift the thinking from parent-child to adult to young adult. 3 things to remember, always when you're dealing with anything that's going to require commitment. Be fair, be clear, and put it in writing. So you need to start educating them financially by taking money from the very first paycheck, but you need to decide on it before they get it in their hot little hand, otherwise you're never going to see it. And it's not going to be negotiation, it's going to be aggravation. My recommendations are that they pay 25%, no less, of their take-home pay as board. Now, if you want to, you can put some of it away for when they go flatting and give it back to them as a bond. But you don't want them to have too much money to live on, because if they're consumer-driven, then what they just get, their lifestyle will grow to the amount of money that they've got in their hand. You understand what I'm saying? The disposable cash in their hand is what they think is theirs, plus more. So if you don't make it realistic, hey, this is what it costs to run a household, let them have a look at the power bill. Let them see that in winter it's more than summer, so that when they go to uni or go to school and they leave the heater on, it just costs $10. But who did it cost? You or them? And if you start to get them much more understanding of how the household runs, contribution will be more automatic. And with contribution comes ownership, and with ownership comes pride. Pride, self-esteem, a stake in the ground, this is our home. In the working world is where they learn transferable skills. I'm not so concerned about what careers are going to be, because my understanding is that they're changing careers pretty often, and that they may go through 2 or 3 different careers before they find their niche. What they do need to be is equipped with transferable skills: time management, goal setting, being able to complete a job, problem solving, reflection, all of these things that are important. None the least, communication skills and people skills. You learn all of that when you're not around mum and dad. If we can't teach our young people, we can't just educate them academically and in the sports and the arts and everything else. We've got to educate them in how to live life, how to communicate with the generation that's going to be paying them the wages. So I strongly recommend you've either got to be learning, earning, or returning. So if you can't get a job, you go and work for free. There's no excuse for your young people to be sitting on their backsides on the weekends or on the holidays particularly doing nothing. Go and work for somebody and get it on your CV. Housework, obviously, the first question I ask, if any of you want to have family coaching with me, the first question I'm going to ask you is, so get ready for it and then you can tell me what I want to hear, and that is, who's changing the sheets on Johnny's bed? Mum. I am. Right, well that's why you've got a useless son sitting around on the couch all weekend, can't do anything because you're changing the sheets on the bed. Look, right here in the front row, sitting there. So we know that kids love choice, don't we? So here's the choice. Do you want to change them weekly or fortnightly? There, that's the only choice you're getting. Right. This is my dad. This is where I lived when I was 10. My parents split up and I was 10 when I went farming with my father and my brother. And what I learnt was routine plus rhythm equals momentum. Because those cows wanted to get milked at the same time every morning and the same time every night. And as a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old living with my dad, I really didn't have a mum after that. We learnt how to have habits and disciplines that undergirded us for the rest of our lives. So habits and disciplines is the routine. The rhythm is the consistency. That's why you change the sheets every fortnight. We did it last Saturday, we don't need to do it this Saturday. We didn't do it last Saturday, we do it this Saturday. If you want to train up your kids to be emotionally sound, teach them those routines. So emotional, this is the greatest gift you can give your kids. is you teach them to be able to handle their emotions. So here's my 4 things to make your kids emotionally strong. Self-discipline, that's doing what you don't want to do and not arguing about it. So it's pushing yourself to do what has to be done. Self-control is holding back from what will damage you or others. They are 2 totally different things, and you'll know that when you look at sports stars. Very disciplined, not so good on the self-control sometimes. The 3rd thing is self-protection, and that is learning to say no. Young people sometimes find it really hard to say no, and you want to teach them how to put the boundaries around themselves. And the last one is self-development. For all of us, life gets too big. And the thing that we generally ask is, how can I make my problems smaller? But what we need to be asking ourselves, and to train our young ones, is how can I make myself bigger? How can I increase my capacity so that I can handle the problems? But if you're a compensating parent or an indulging parent, you'll be taking their problems away and making their problems smaller, and so they stay small. So it's your responsibility. If they're playing those very, very violent games, if they are reading stuff well, they're probably not reading, if they're watching stuff or they're into stuff that you know is not going to build their character, please have the courage to stand up and say, no. No. This is not going into your head, because I want you to be strong. And if you get that whole mentality around that you're absolutely fired up and committed to their future, they will listen to you. They truly, truly will. Mistakes, they're going to make them. So you're going to be asking yourself, what dangerous pathways is my young person on? You know, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but a good friend of mine says, nothing good happens after midnight. All the eating, the drinking, the dancing, the talking, it's all been done after midnight. So if your kids are out at 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning, they are very, very vulnerable. It's a dangerous pathway to be on. So think about what behavioural habits they have around risk. You know, I'm all for going out of your comfort zone and doing zany things, but when it's risky behaviour, when it's driving, drinking, drugs, passenger, whatever, when it's casual sex left, right and centre, we got a problem. Dr. Albert Macari, look him up, Timaru, gynaecologist. Do you know the average sexual partners in the world for a woman is 7.3, and in New Zealand it is 20.4. 1 in 3 babies conceived in New Zealand is aborted, because there's just so much promiscuity going on. And it's not in your house, of course, because we're here together, sharing and caring, but out there it is. So really be careful. If you're letting your kids get into situations that are potentially dangerous, then you're going to end up with big problems. Deliberate mistakes, when they just plain get into a bad place. Parents say to me, why is my kid acting like this? Well, 4 main reasons that I've come across. You can see them on the screen. No dream. Our young people have to have something to look forward to. They have to believe that there's a future for them. Broken relationships is a big one. There's a lot about relationships in my book, about how to build a healthy one and how to resolve conflict and how to help your young people get out of a relationship that's bad for them. There's a whole chapter on it. Trauma. I'm not equipped to deal with trauma. I'm not a counsellor, but get help if there has been trauma, because it will show up in the weirdest ways. It will manifest itself somehow. But the last one is the weak character, and I do want to tell you a story about this. On my own, I had only one situation where I could have sent the kids home. 2 boys had a misdemeanour, one of them owned up and the other one didn't. Anyway, someone snitched on him and I found out after a day and a half. He was determined not to own up, no question. So I said to him, Jake, hey, lunchtime, I'm going out. You want to come with me for a ride? And he said, oh, yeah, going out with the boss. And he, let all the other kids know he was going out with me. We ran the program 7 kilometres from Perumarima prison. And so as we drove out of the driveway, I turned left instead of right. He said, where are we going, Yvonne? I said, I was going for a ride. And on the trip, I nailed him on the crime. He absolutely couldn't believe that he'd been found out. And when we pulled up outside maximum security, he asked me why we were there. I said, because this is your future in 2 years if you keep going the way you're going. I thought, I've got 2 really disturbing pictures in my head for you, Jake. The first one is what these boys are going to do to you when you come in because you're pretty. His eyes got that big, his little bottom clenched up on the seat. Actually, not so little, he was about 6'3". Huge kid, 17. I said, but the second picture I have for you is the one that disturbs me the most. And I said, that is because you've got no conscience. Your conscience is severed. You are 17 and you don't care who you rip off. And he said, are you going to send me home? I said, I should, but I don't want to because I want you to learn something while you're here. I'm asking you to cross the line from boy to man. And this is where the Declaration of Independence came from talking to Jake and saying, you have to make a decision that you will do what's right in this world. And he said, I don't know if I can. I said, fair enough. Jump out. It was the middle of winter. He had no shoes on and we were 7 k's from camp. And the road is like that. I know because I rode it on my bike yesterday. And I said, I want you to think about it. Whatever you decide's fine. But if you're not prepared to measure up and become a man, you're going home. So he got back to camp at afternoon tea time, bawling. He said, I've made a decision. He said, I want to be a good man. He'd been raised by a family of women. He had no men in his life. He hated his father. He said, I want to be a good man because I want to have a lot of little children. And I said, well, that's the other thing, Jake. You can only have as many children as one woman can bear. If you want to be the father at the level you're talking about, because you can only live with one at a time. And I remembered in the conference room, the dream board, the vision board, that had 3 women on it and 3 little children. He was already visualising it. And I said, you need to take 2 of those women off the board. And he did. Of course, left the best looking one, of course. And he finally got the idea, look, conscience, it is so diluted today. This is what worries me the most about this emerging generation, is that there's no conscience. There's no guilt. There's no, I'm sorry, I'm truly, truly remorseful, and I will turn my ways and do it something differently. The sharper your conscience, the stronger your character. If you can do anything with your young people, it is make them accountable. Do not let them off the hook when their conscience gets weak, because eventually, you see, if you don't pay attention to it, you don't hear it anymore. So when your heart is broken, ask yourself what pathway led to this destination, because I have parents come to me all the time, absolutely devastated at the destination that their young person or their family's in. And as much as I empathise with them, I say we need to back up the truck and we need to unravel this situation and we need to start with where this happened, because the pathway where you and I are today is the destination of a very carefully trodden pathway. So if we go back on the pathway and we can change some things, we won't have a repeat. But if we just try to deal with the issue, but we don't deal with the youngster and we don't deal with the pathway, maybe it's a parenting style that we've allowed, then we're always going to have the same problems. So this is why I'm asking you to have courage. Close the back door to dysfunction. The last part, the let go, I want you to release your young ones. I don't want them leaving home like that. And I don't want you kicking them out. I don't want to see you kick your kids out ever. And I don't want to see them leaving resentful, because sometimes they never come back. I want you to get into your head that you're going to release them into their future. Young people need something to look forward to, somewhere to belong, something to believe in, a place to grow and a place to contribute. And thank you so much for being a brilliant audience. I appreciate you very much. Thank you.